Hey guys, thanks for coming back and joining us here at Salty Ginger Talk. Glad to have you back. So, in today's episode, we're all going to give ourselves a little bit of tough love. Our episode today is titled "The World Doesn't Owe You a Thing." And I think that's a great mantra, great way to think about things that you have responsibility for your own life. Our episode is really about self reliance, it's about accountability to ourselves and the importance of personal responsibility. Perspective, there are many dirty words in our language. We think entitlement is a dirty word. In modern culture, there's so much emphasis on fame and money and popularity. There's a premium placed on those things. We glamorize athletes, we glamorize entertainers, we glamorize influencers, we glamorize all sorts of stuff. And too many people think that they are just entitled to things that they don't have to earn, that they don't have to go out and work for. And we would argue that's a terrible way to live your life. It's a recipe for unhappiness, it's a recipe for a lack of success, and it's a recipe for a lack of fulfillment. So, today's episode, we're going to talk through why the world doesn't owe you anything and how you should think about you as the owner of everything in your life. And I rarely make global statements, but I'll make that one. You are responsible for everything in your life, and you should take control of it and build the life that you want. And the beautiful thing is, you get to choose what that life is. That doesn't mean millions of dollars. That doesn't mean like you can choose. If millions of dollars is important to you, great. I personally have never cared about money. My wife likes money a lot. I don't. It's funny because I've always made pretty good money, and that works really well for her. But I don't care. It's a way of keeping score, and from that perspective, it's a good thing. Money to me is just freedom. That's all it means. The more money you have, the more freedom you have. That's the only reason I would like to continue to make a lot of money, is because I want freedom. I don't have to be responsible to anyone. I want to own my own stuff. I want as much control over my destiny as possible, and money provides that. So I think family and experiences and relationships are way more important than money. So does my wife. She just places way higher value on money than I do. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. That's who she is. That's who I am. We've been happy together for 30 plus years. We'll be happy together for 30 plus more if we're both still around. So all I'm telling you is you get to choose what it's about, but you choose. Don't ride the wave just where it takes you. You choose how you want your life to be. One thing I will note, social media has really exacerbated that. Remember now on social media, people post their highlights, not their failures. Um, Many people fake stuff. They'll go rent a studio to make it look like they're on a private plane. They'll rent a car and take pictures. They'll drive that car to some big mansion, park in front of it, and take pictures like it's their house. A lot of that shit is just absolutely fake. Some of it's real, some of it's not. But my point is, those are highlights. They're not failures. They're not the people's real life. They got problems just like anyone else does, even if they're that financially successful. And good for them. I hold nothing against them. I wish them the best. I'm glad they've had success. I don't begrudge anyone success. I'm happy for people when they're successful because I'm very happy with the life I've built for myself. So, like, good for them. That's awesome. I'm not going to say anything negative about them. I'm not going to drag them down. It's just important for you to realize a lot of that stuff, not real. And it's unhealthy to compare yourself to other people. What you should be doing is comparing yourself to who you were yesterday. You should try to be making you a little bit better than you were yesterday. That's the only comparison in life that you ever need to make. So, with all that said, what are some of the consequences of feeling entitled and feeling like the world owes you and not owning your shit? Like, you've got to own your shit. It's that basic. But what are some consequences for thinking the world owes you or that life is unfair? And guess what? Life's unfair sometimes. Deal with it. That's how it goes. If you're waiting for fairness, you're going to be waiting a long time. Life is not fair. It's just, you better deal with it. You better get used to it. Don't expect it to be fair. Expect that things are not going to go your way. So, a little personal story on that before we dig in here. I coached a lot of my kids when they played sports. We had one group of kids that was a really good hockey team. And we were going up to this little town in New Hampshire where you always got home jobbed by the refs. Like, that's just how it was. You knew you were going to get shitty calls. and we needed to win that game to get into the playoff race or the playoff bracket that we were trying to get into. So all week long, I coached the kids. When they call a penalty, we're going to shut our mouths. We're going to go to the box. We're going to kill the penalty off, and we're going to win the game anyways. I don't want to hear a word from anyone. I don't want to hear anyone complaining about calls. Coaches, you're not allowed to complain about calls. Nobody. So sure enough, we get up there and we're winning the game 3-0, and the calls start in the third period. And so we played, the period's like 12 minutes long. I think we played like the last 7 minutes, at least one man down. There were periods of time where we played two men down, and we won the game 3-1. But my son was on the team. He was skating up the ice, and this kid literally grabs him from behind and tackles him. And as my son falls over, he throws his hands up in the air like this because he's falling backwards. It's natural. He got called for a high stick. They didn't call the penalty on the kid for grabbing him and yanking him down. They called the penalty on my son for a high stick. And my son stands up and he starts to argue. And I yelled out, "Go to the box. Go serve the penalty." Like we knew it was going to happen. We were prepared for it. We talked about it beforehand. Now is not the time to lose our cool and composure. And we killed those penalties off. We won that game. So that's just a little example of it doesn't matter if life is fair or not. You are still in the situation that you're in. You still have control over how you react to that situation, and you should focus on what you have control over. That's what we had control over, so that's what we did. Consequences for feeling this way, for thinking this way, for living your life this way. Mental consequences. You're going to be bitter. You're going to be frustrated. You're going to be unhappy. If you think the world owes you, you're going to be waiting a long time. The world doesn't hand out free shit to anybody. The world doesn't just dish out shit on a silver platter. It's up to you to go get it. So mentally, it's going to be a really bad situation for you. Physically, you're probably going to be unhealthy. Like, I want to be in shape. Did you ever think about going to a gym? Did you ever think about changing your diet? Did you ever think about picking up a sport or an activity that made you exercise and be more healthy? That's on you. It's 100% on you. So you're physically going to be unhealthy. You're not going to be able to do everything you want. What if you want to hike to the top of the mountain and you can't because your cardiovascular system and your respiratory system are so out of shape that they can't make it to the top of the hill? You're missing out on that activity. If you've ever been up on a mountain and just kind of looked out at how grand it is up there, it really puts things in perspective. Like, man, there is so much more out there than just me and my little world and my little problems. It's a great place to be. But if you sit around waiting for people to like tap you on the head and go, "There, now you're in shape," not going to happen. You own it. You own the responsibility and the choices that get you in that spot. Economic. If you only take what the world will give you or what others will give you, expect to be unhappy, expect not to have a lot of money, expect not to be able to make choices on your own, because when other people control those things, they control you. And so it's bad to wait for things to happen. Go out and get it. I'm not saying you got to go out and start your own company. If you work at a company, what are you doing to make yourself better at that company? What projects are you volunteering to take on? What additional responsibilities are you volunteering to take on? What training are you doing? What schooling are you doing outside of work to make yourself better so that you're in a position to take those things on? So economically, it has a big impact on you as well. And then social. Nobody likes being around someone who whines and complains all the time. Nobody likes being around someone who thinks the world's out to get them. Nobody wants to be friends with someone who's negative all the time. So you're going to erode your relationships. You're going to alienate your friends, your colleagues, and you're going to be ostracized from the groups that you want to be a part of. So it's got no benefits. It does no good. It doesn't work. And it leads you to a really negative point in life. So you've got to own your stuff. Life is hard. It's challenging. It's unpredictable. And like we've talked about, it's unfair. You got to deal with it. That's how it works. Like, that's just life. The best way to make your life the way you want it is to take control of your actions and expect no help from anybody. I'm not saying that you don't have a lot of people around that want to help you, want to support you, and it's great when they do. But you should not be counting on somebody else for your life's outcome, for your ambitions, for your dreams and goals. You should be actively working on them, and you should always take responsibility. So that's called self-reliance in our book. That's relying on yourself. That's betting on yourself to get to where you want to be. So that means you've got to take ownership of your life circumstances, both the successes and the failures. Like, I'm personally not in very good shape right now. And so I'm working hard to get back into good shape. And I own that. It's my choices that have led me here, nobody else's. It's not the consumer packaged goods companies that advertise sugary cereals and high carbohydrate foods. It's not fast food restaurants. It's my fault. It's my issue that I'm where I'm at now. It's nobody else's. And I'm not going to make excuses for it. I'm not going to make excuses for anything. I'm going to own it and I'm going to take control of it, which is what I'm doing. Same thing. Like I'm, in a good spot from a business perspective. And that's because of me. I've worked really hard to build a career that I've built. I've worked really hard to develop the relationships that I've developed. And I own that. And that's because of the steps I took and the things that I did. So that's what self reliance is. You got to embrace both the good and the bad. And you can't make excuses, not about others. Oh, that guy screwed me. He's out to get me. Okay, maybe he is. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? You can't sit and whine and complain. It's not going to change a thing. Take control. Take action. I would argue this is one area that it's good to be extreme. It's good to be extreme that it's all up to me. I remember when I first started at a job and I was just a buyer at the company, and there was another person there that was a buyer, and she was a very good buyer. And when you own inventory that nobody will buy, it's called dead inventory. And it's your job as a buyer to get rid of that dead inventory and turn it back into cash. And she was very good at it. And so I started calling her the queen of the dead. And for some reason, she didn't like that, so I was younger and much less mature. And so I called her queen of the dead several times. So she complained to somebody about it. And so the head of the department said, hey, so-and-so is complaining about you calling her queen of the dead. And I said, nope, that's on me. My fault. I'm sorry. You've got better things to worry about than that. My fault. It'll never happen again. I'll apologize to her. Don't even worry about it. And he looked at me and he said, that's why you're going to wind up running a big part of this company some days, because you've got that mentality. So like he could see it in me even then. I shouldn't have let it get to that point, but I did. And so I had to own my decisions, and I had to own making it right. I don't need my boss worrying about something like the fourth grade. You called me a name. Was it stupid? Yeah. So what? Like I owned it. That was on me. It was on me when that stuff happened. So I think it's one place it's good to be extreme. It's good to be no. I had control. I should have reacted differently. I should have done this. I should have done that. I say the same thing like in baseball. If you have two strikes on you, you got to swing at anything near the plate, and it's your job as a hitter to get a piece of it so you can stay alive and get another pitch. But if you take a close pitch and the umpire calls a strike, that's on you. It's not on the umpire. Even if you missed it, even if it wasn't a strike, it's your job to fight those things off. So that's what I mean when I say kind of extreme self-reliance. I think it's a good place to be extreme. That's just me. You're going to face setbacks in life. That's just how life is. Things are tough. Life is tough. Our oldest son last Christmas wound up developing, unknown to anyone, diabetes and nearly passed away. He was on life support for a couple of days. And we went from sitting in our living room. He showed up with one of his younger brothers, and we were in the emergency room, and I was arguing with, board trained doctors on giving him what he needed to stay alive. And he literally was on life support for 2 days because he was so far down the road that they had a really hard time stabilizing all of it was really the potassium and the insulin in his body. But like, I didn't have the luxury of panicking. I didn't have the luxury of, oh, why is this happening to me? Poor me. We had to deal with the situation at hand, and we did. So that extreme self-reliance is terribly, terribly important when you're faced with setbacks, and that's a big setback. I've had all sorts of stuff in business and sports and personal relationships. Wah, wah, wah. So what? You own it. You own it. I hear people all the time complaining about their exes. People that were married and have children, they'll complain about their ex. I'm always like, you married them. You were the one fucking them. Like, well, that's your problem, not ours. Like, it tells me you're not a very good judge of character. Like, at one point, this person was the most important person in your life, and they're such a scumbag you can't even stand to be around them now? Really? You own that. You own your share of that. I watched my parents get divorced, and they both owned a part of it. Like, that's how it was. It's a relationship. There's two people involved, and each of them needed to own the mistakes that they made so that they didn't make them again. That's how setbacks are. The one thing to keep in mind, I guess it's two things, but one thought. Success is never permanent. Just because you were successful once doesn't mean you'll be successful again. And failure is rarely fatal. I see rarely fatal or final because, like, if you fail at skydiving, yeah, it's probably fatal. But that's an extreme example. Most failures you can bounce back from. Think about people who've endured huge public scandals. Mel Gibson, Monica Lewinsky. Those are some people that come to mind that endured huge public scandals and huge public humiliation. And they're both doing really well in their lives. Things just take time sometimes to settle down, to put them behind you and move forward. So don't get too excited when things are going good, because you don't know if they're going to keep going good. A lot of the reason they're probably going good is because you were doing work and taking steps and taking actions to make them go good. And the minute you let up, things aren't going to go as good. Like, it's the actions that got you there. It wasn't some luck. It's not because you're so much smarter than anybody else. If you quit taking those actions, you're going to pay the price for that. Conversely, if things are tough, fight through them, because you'll be able to get them to improve. Sometimes you got to give it time. Sometimes you got to apply the learnings that you got from the situation, but it's not final. And you may not have control over what happens to you, but you have 100% control over how you react to it. And always keep that in mind. Even if things are tough, like, my son's situation, I didn't have any control over him developing diabetes. His insulin literally stopped producing insulin. His pancreas literally stopped producing insulin. So we don't have control over that. He didn't have control over that, but we had to deal with that situation. Don't cry about it. Don't whine about it. Face it head on and deal with it. That's by far the best way to get through those situations. So, with all that said, what are some tips you can use to practice and embrace personal responsibility, to really feel good about, hey, this is my life. I own it. I'm going to take control over what happens to me. I'm going to take control over how I react to it. I'm not going to let setbacks stop me from achieving my goals long term. So, what are some practical tips that you can use to manage that mindset? First one is express gratitude daily. And when I say express it, say it out loud to yourself, say it out loud to somebody else, write it down, whatever the case may be. But think about all the good things you have in your life. And there's tons of good things in your life that all of us very often take for granted. So I have a great family. That's always where I start, with gratitude. I'm so happy that I met my wife so young in my life. We've been together for 30 plus years. I've got great kids. I've got a great nuclear family. I've got good friends that I can call and talk to. Like, I have good things in my life. I was born healthy. I was born in the United States. Like, those are huge advantages that you have over billions of people on the face of the earth, and you take it for granted. You take it for granted. I saw a comedian that was talking about coming to the United States. He was all excited. He was making fun of Seattle because he said everyone was complaining Seattle and America is such a great or such a terrible country. That's what all the people in Seattle were saying. And I think he said he was from Ukraine, if I remember right. He's like, why don't you try to go get an oat milk latte in Kiev and see how it goes? You don't like your passport? Give it to me. I'll take full advantage of it. So there's so many things that you have to be grateful for, that you should show gratitude for every day. That alone will change your mindset and say, hey, I got a good life. I want to live it to the fullest, and I'm going to take responsibility for how it turns out. Next, set SMART goals. So SMART is an acronym. It stands for specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. So what was an example of a non-SMART goal? I'd like to lose some weight. Okay, sounds good. Good luck. That's not going to cut it. A SMART goal would be specific. I want to lose 20 pounds. Measurable. You can measure 20 pounds. If you start at 200 and you go to 180, that's 20 pounds. It's very easy to measure. Achievable. Are you 7 feet tall? No. Then you can probably get down to 180 pounds. That's realistic. Both of those are realistic. I want to lose 20 pounds in 4 months. That's even better, because now it's time bound, right? So that's a SMART goal. That's the difference between a wish and a goal. A SMART goal is specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's realistic, and it's time bound. So set SMART goals for yourself. Do them one at a time. Just pick one goal. Once you achieve that, pick another one. But always have something you're working towards. Always have something that is on your horizon that you're doing to try to improve yourself. It can be personal, it could be professional, it could be physical, it could be anything. But set a SMART goal for yourself and get after it. That alone will change your mindset. That leads us to developing a growth mindset. So a growth mindset versus a conservation mindset is, oh, I've got this and I just want to hang on to it. And if nothing changes, I'll just be happy with what I've got. I don't think that's a good way to think. I don't think that's a good way to live. Think about all the people that you know now and all the experiences that you've had in your life. Those are things that those are people you wouldn't have in your life. Those are experiences you wouldn't have been able to experience. There are benefits that come from that you wouldn't have if you didn't have a growth mindset. You didn't take a chance. You didn't take a risk. You didn't put yourself out there. So embracing that growth mindset is important. Watch the movie Yes Man. I thought it's an extreme example, and I know it's a movie, I know it's scripted, I get all that. But if you watch that, it's a guy that goes from being isolated, he's divorced, he's unhappy, and he goes to a seminar. And at the seminar, he makes a covenant with the guy that's running the seminar. He calls him out and says, "You're going to say yes to any question that gets asked to you. Anyone that makes a request of you, you're going to say yes to it." So he learns to fly, he learns to play the guitar, he learns to speak Korean. All sorts of stuff happens to him, and it's a good movie. The message of the movie is good. That you've got to take your shots, and that you've got to take control of your life and own your decisions. And you got to own both your successes and your failures. They're both important. Along those same lines, you've got to embrace the value of hard work. It's easy to come home, click the TV on, grab a tub of Ben and Jerry's or a bag of chips, and just park it for the rest of the night. Are you actually really happy? You know you're not. You know you're not. I know I'm not when I let that happen every once in a while. It's not the way to go. Embrace the value of hard work. You have to have downtime. You have to have balance. You have to have periods of time where you can mentally rest and recharge, and that's fine. But you should be grinding. Like you should be grinding whatever it is. It doesn't have to be work. It doesn't have to be financially motivated. Maybe you want to be a really good guitar player, not even so you can go out and join a band just because you enjoy music. That's fine. Grind at it. Learn how to play the guitar. Learn all the chords. Learn how that works. Maybe you want to become a painter because you love art. That's great, but grind at it. Really work at painting. Really understand the concepts behind painting and how to put things together on a canvas so that they have aesthetic value. Like really grind at something. Learn the value of hard work and embrace the value of hard work. You'll be so much happier than sitting around waiting for someone to hand you something. And then the last one is self-discipline. So self-discipline, persistence and resilience, they're far more rewarding than waiting for someone's table scraps. When you go out and earn something, there is a pride, there's a value in that that you can't get from somebody handing you something. That's why government handouts don't work, because people didn't do a goddamn thing for that money. And even though they think it's helping them, it's holding them back. I'm not saying don't take it when you need it. I'm not saying that everybody that's on government assistance is a scumbag. Not at all what I'm saying. My point is that should be a temporary stopgap solution, and you should be actively working and pushing yourself to build the life that you want. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes there's challenges, there's setbacks, there's things in your way. There's all sorts of reasons and excuses that you can make, but you have to own it. That's the important part. You own your life. Self-discipline and really focusing on, I'm going to be successful at whatever it was I chose to pursue. You can do it, but you have to own it. Nobody's going to hand it to you. You've got to go out and get it. Don't wait for someone to come help you because they're not coming. By the way, you'll actually get more help when you put yourself out there because people respect someone who's grinding. People respect someone who's pushing hard. People want to help those people. They want to be associated with those people. So you actually wind up getting way more help by taking action and taking control than you do by crossing your fingers and hoping somebody helps you. It's not going to happen, I'm telling you. So remind yourself that you alone own your life and your decisions. You are it. You are the penultimate owner of your happiness, of your success, of your failure, of everything that happens to you. It is entirely up to and on you. And you should love that. You should love that. It shouldn't scare you. You should love it because you get to decide. You have complete control. You are the captain of your life. You are the CEO of your life. Take control of it. You can do it. The world doesn't owe you a thing. Don't forget that. All right, guys, that's the episode for today. I hope you found it useful. I enjoyed putting this episode together. It's good to brush up on the stuff every once in a while. I kind of have a growth mindset by nature, but it's very easy to slip backwards. And I'm not perfect. There's a lot of times where I'm like not doing as good as I should be doing. There's a lot of times where I get lazy. There's a lot of times where I'm inefficient. There's a lot of times where I'm not pushing myself. So I got a lot out of putting this episode together and presenting it to you guys because it's motivating for me to really stand in front of the mirror and tell myself the same thing. So I hope you found it valuable. Don't forget to head over to our website, saltygingertalk.com. All of our podcast episodes are on there. We've got a daily newsletter that we publish every weekday. You can subscribe to that. We've got links to all of our other social media accounts on there as well. So don't forget also to like, comment, and subscribe to our podcast on whatever channel or forum you consume it on. Really appreciate you coming back, guys. Hope you found today useful. Everybody have a great week, and we'll talk to you later.